Sean Diddy Combs' defense team moved for an acquittal after the prosecution rested their case in his sex trafficking and racketeering trial. Attorney Alexandra Shapiro argued that the government failed to prove the counts against the rapper, citing a lack of evidence that Diddy's employees participated in or were aware of the alleged sex trafficking. The jury spent 6 weeks hearing testimony from Diddy's ex-girlfriends, ex-employees, and witnesses involved in the investigation. Closing arguments are set to begin on Thursday morning. Fox News outdrew all competitors for breaking coverage of the strike on Iran, averaging 4.9 million total viewers during primetime hours. The network's digital platform achieved its best weekend of 2025 as Americans sought information on military action. Fox News also prevailed among adults aged 25 to 54, topping every competitor's breaking news coverage. Spanish authorities have launched an investigation after discovering multiple corpses in the Mediterranean Sea whose hands and feet had been tied. At least 5 bodies were found with their limbs bound since mid-May, with police suspecting that the victims may be migrants from North Africa. The investigation aims to identify the victims and determine the causes of their death. A spike in viral infections has sickened thousands of travelers at popular European destinations, with 4 countries reporting over 2,000 cases and several deaths between January and May 2025. The European Centre for Disease Prevention and Control, ECDC, issued a rapid risk assessment warning of the outbreak, which is mainly spread through contaminated food or water, or close contact with infected people. Groups most affected include those who are homeless, use or inject recreational drugs, live in unsanitary conditions, or have limited access to health care. The ECDC recommends targeted vaccination programs, post-exposure prophylaxis, and increased education and awareness among high-risk groups. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer called the postponement of a classified briefing on the Iran-Israel conflict outrageous and derelict. The briefing, which was set to include briefers from the Department of State and Chairman of the Joint Chiefs Dan Kane, had been postponed to allow for other briefers to join. Schumer said senators deserve transparency and that the administration's delay is an obstruction of their obligation to inform Congress on critical issues. The House's classified briefing was also postponed, prompting a legislative tantrum on the floor. Democratic Representative Yvette Clarke attempted to seek an explanation from the chair, but was dismissed repeatedly. Pelosi criticized the postponement, calling it an intolerable insult to the co-equal branch of government. The Chicago Tribune's editorial board warned New York City Democratic voters on Monday against nominating Zohran Mamdani, a Democratic socialist, in Tuesday's mayoral primary, urging them to look to Chicago as a warning. The Tribune told New Yorkers that they've seen this movie before and the ending isn't pretty, detailing the hardships their city has faced after electing Mayor Brandon Johnson, also a Democratic socialist, in 2023. Former New York Governor Andrew Cuomo's lead over Mamdani has been shrinking in recent polling of the Democratic Party primary race for mayor, showing the New York State Assemblyman gaining momentum as the primary election gets closer. The FBI has pivoted its resources to counter-terrorism efforts following an Iranian attack on a U.S. base in Qatar, amid escalating tensions between the two nations. The move comes after President Donald Trump announced that Israel and Iran had agreed to a ceasefire. Iranian state television declared all U.S. citizens and soldiers in the Middle East legitimate targets following the escalation. The FBI continually assesses its resources to respond to pressing threats, an official told Fox News Digital. Amtrak passengers were stranded on a train without air conditioning for over an hour during the heat wave on Monday, June 23. The Northeast Regional Amtrak Train 94 was halted in the Baltimore and Potomac Tunnel before Baltimore Penn Station toward Wilmington, Delaware. Passengers were evacuated by 5 p.m. EST and provided with alternative transportation options. Amtrak apologized for the inconvenience and offered snack packs and bottled water to affected passengers. A plan by Senate Energy Chairman Mike Lee to sell over 3,200 square miles of federal lands has been ruled out due to Senate rules violations. The proposal aimed to transfer public lands in the West to states or entities for housing and infrastructure development. Democrats and environmental groups opposed the plan, citing concerns about private interests exploiting public lands. The ruling by Senate parliamentarian Elizabeth McDonough is advisory but rarely ignored. The plan's fate remains uncertain as lawmakers continue to debate President Donald Trump's tax cut package. Former NBC News host Chuck Todd questioned whether the media were sold a 40-year bill of goods about former President Joe Biden being a family man, citing his decision to run for re-election despite his family's struggles. Todd spoke on his podcast with CNN host Jake Tapper, who wrote a book about Biden's decline and decision to run again. The discussion centered around the notion that Biden prioritized his ambition over his family's well-being. A New Jersey elementary school teacher was indicted for allegedly abusing a student over the course of several years, while also giving birth to the boy's child. Laura Karen, 34, is accused of engaging in an inappropriate sexual relationship with the student, who had been residing in her home. The abuse allegedly started when the boy was 11 in 2016 and carried on for 4 years until 2020. During this time period, prosecutors said, Karen was employed as a 5th grade teacher at Middle Township Elementary School. The Trump administration has asked the U.S. Supreme Court to clarify its order allowing migrants to be deported to third countries. A federal judge in Boston had previously blocked the deportation of 8 men being held in Djibouti, citing concerns over their safety. The Supreme Court's original ruling allowed for expedited removals to countries other than a migrant's place of origin. However, Judge Brian Murphy's order has created an unstable situation at the military base in Djibouti, where the migrants are being held. Verizon has launched its most significant customer experience transformation to date, featuring a new app and upgraded customer support. The changes aim to improve user experience and provide better service for customers. Soumyanarayan Samthath, CEO of Verizon's Consumer Group, discussed the updates on CBS Mornings. U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE officials have arrested a total of 15 Iranian nationals in the country illegally, including 5 more individuals announced on Monday, in addition to the 11 previously reported. The arrests come amid concerns about Iranian sleeper cells in the United States, following the strikes on nuclear sites in Iran. The individuals arrested had prior convictions for crimes such as assault with a deadly weapon, battery, and stalking. DHS officials stated that they have been full throttle on identifying and arresting known or suspected terrorists and violent extremists who entered the country illegally. Scientists at the University of Florida have confirmed the presence of a hybrid species formed by 2 invasive termite species, the Formosan subterranean termites and Asian subterranean termites, which are breeding in southern areas of Florida. The study, published in Proceedings of the Royal Society B, found that the hybrid species has been present since 2021 and is capable of forming massive colonies, causing extensive damage to buildings and negatively affecting agriculture. While termites play a role in helping the ecosystem by fertilizing soil and sequestering carbon, their invasive nature and toxic gas emissions pose significant threats to native ecology. A severe heat wave is impacting over 145 million people across the United States, with triple-digit temperatures reported from Texas to New England. In New Jersey, a pair of outdoor graduation ceremonies landed 16 attendees in the hospital. NBC's Emily Akeda reports, and today's Al Roker tracks the forecast. A senior portfolio manager at Washington Crossing Advisors, Chad Morganlander, has expressed concerns about Tesla's TSLA stock valuation. He believes the company's robotaxi debut may not live up to expectations, citing a lofty forward price-to-earnings multiple of 178 times. This is significantly higher than the S&P 500's GSPC 21 times multiple. Morgenlander also pointed out that consensus earnings per share (EPS) estimates for Tesla have plunged 77%, 70%, and 71% since October 2022, according to J.P. Morgan auto analyst Ryan Brinkman. The EV tax credits that support demand for Tesla vehicles are likely going away soon under the Trump administration, which could further impact the company's profits. The Rubin telescope, located at the top of the Cerro Pachón Mountains in Chile, has captured breathtaking images of galaxies 55 million light-years away. The telescope's massive digital camera is capable of capturing vast amounts of data and producing high-resolution images of distant celestial objects. U.S. Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, DNY, responded to President Donald Trump's attack, calling his decision to bomb Iran a grave violation of the Constitution and congressional war powers. Trump retaliated with insults, but Ocasio-Cortez seemed amused, offering tips on emotional regulation and correcting him about her connection to Queens. The exchange occurred after she suggested Trump's actions were grounds for impeachment. Alicia Hannah Kim, an actress from the popular TV series Cobra Kai, confronted her co-star Martin Kove at a fan meet-and-greet in Washington. The confrontation occurred after Kove allegedly bit Hannah Kim, prompting her to file a report with authorities. Despite choosing not to pursue charges, Hannah Kim wanted to document the incident on Kove's record. Kirk Barton, a former Ohio State football player and NFL player, has been charged with one count of aggravated vehicular homicide after a fatal car crash in Ohio over the weekend. According to police, Barton was driving intoxicated and on the wrong side of the road when he struck a Lexus driven by 24-year-old Ethan Wentz Perry, who died at the scene. Barton was transported to a hospital with non-life-threatening injuries and was released on a $500,000 cash surety bond. He is due back in court next month. The House of Representatives voted 344-79 to table a resolution to impeach President Donald Trump over his strikes on Iran. A majority of House Democrats joined Republican lawmakers to kill the measure, with 128 Democrats voting against it. The push for impeachment was led by Representative Al Green, D. Texas, who argued that Trump's actions constituted a de facto declaration of war. Trump mocked the effort in a Truth Social post, calling on progressives to make my day and questioning their polling numbers. House Democratic leaders sidestepped questions about the push for impeachment during a press conference Monday. Karen Scott Pizer, the former CEO of OnTrack, has been sentenced to 42 months in prison and ordered to pay $17.9 million in fines and restitution after being convicted of abusing Rule 10b-5-1 trading plans. The case is the first ever prosecution based exclusively on the abuse of these plans, which are used by thousands of U.S. executives of publicly traded companies. Pizer avoided $12.5 million in stock losses by selling his shares before certain information was made public, and the stock price dropped more than 40%. Authorities claim that Pizer got in touch with a broker to set up a Rule 10b-5-1 trading plan on May 4, 2021, just days after he learned about the potential loss of Cigna as a major client. He began selling OnTrack stock the next business day without a cooling-off period, and continued to sell throughout the summer under the plan he established in May. Pizer's lawyer has stated that the case will be appealed, claiming it was a true miscarriage of justice from the get-go. The prosecution is part of a data-driven initiative by the DOJ's Criminal Fraud Division to identify executive abuses of 10b-5-1 trading plans. New U.S. Customs and Border Protection data shows that between June 1 and June 22, there were 5,414 apprehensions at the border, with the busiest sector being El Paso. This is a significant decrease from the previous administration's numbers, with May seeing just under 9,000 apprehensions compared to roughly 118,000 in the year prior. The CBP One app was turned into the CBP Home app by the Trump administration. and it is now used for non-criminal individuals who seek to self-deport. The Department of Homeland Security is offering a $1,000 stipend and free travel out of the U.S. for those who opt to leave on their own. A UPS driver in Georgia shared an emotional moment with a couple of pups and their owner as he bid them farewell during his last shift after more than a decade of dog treats and deliveries. The driver, who had formed a strong bond with the dogs over the years, got choked up while saying goodbye to the furry friends. A study from Scotland's St. Andrews University found that milk is more hydrating than plain water due to its nutrient composition, which includes sugar, protein, and fat. This helps slow down the emptying of fluid from the stomach and keeps hydration happening over a longer period. Milk also contains sodium, which acts like a sponge and holds onto water in the body, resulting in less urine produced. Beverages with electrolytes, such as oral rehydration solutions, can also promote water retention. However, high-sugar drinks, like fruit juices or colas, are not necessarily more hydrating than plain water, and may even offer extra sugars and calories. A second shark attack occurred on Hilton Head Island in South Carolina, just days after the first incident. The latest victim was bitten by a shark on June 23, 2025, while on the same beach where the previous attack took place. First responders rushed to assist the injured person. This marks the second shark attack on the island in 1 week, raising concerns about public safety. Mahmoud Khalil, a Columbia University pro-Palestinian activist, detained by ICE for over 3 months, spoke with ABC News Live Prime anchor Lindsay Davis in his first on-camera interview since release. Khalil, a green card holder facing deportation under the Trump administration, remains undeterred despite lingering threats of renewed detention. He was detained on March 8 and released on June 21 after a U.S. district judge issued a preliminary injunction barring the Trump administration from continuing to detain him based on national security concerns. Khalil's case has sparked controversy, with the Department of Homeland Security criticizing the judge's decision to release him, calling it an example of how out-of-control members of the judicial branch are undermining national security. Khalil's detention was part of a broader crackdown on pro-Palestinian activists under the Trump administration, which has been accused of targeting students and activists for their views. Khalil's case highlights the complexities of immigration policy and the tensions between free speech and national security concerns. Real estate development can be a risky business. Developers have to find and buy a property, then push their idea through a tedious and difficult permitting process, often with vitriolic public opposition, before going to investors to ask for a few million. And that's before construction even begins. Many ideas never get to the construction stage after getting skewered by the public and guillotined by difficult market conditions. And more developments could be on the chopping block amid high interest rates, declining land values, and a continued shortage of construction labor. The National Transportation Safety Board, NTSB, has criticized Boeing's safety culture and oversight after a mid-air cabin panel blowout on an Alaska Airlines MAX 9 flight in January 2024. The incident was entirely avoidable, according to NTSB Chair Jennifer Homendy, who stated that the plane maker should have addressed unauthorized production issues identified in internal audits for at least 10 years. Boeing's on-the-job training was lacking, and the company is working on a design enhancement to ensure the door plug cannot be closed until it's firmly secured. The U.S. Senate is set to begin a marathon voting session this weekend as it attempts to pass President Trump's big, beautiful bill. The vote-a-rama, which could last up to 20 hours, will start late Friday night or early Saturday morning and continue until late Saturday or early Sunday. The House of Representatives will then need to align with the Senate's passage, potentially delaying the final vote until Tuesday or Wednesday. Key issues remain outstanding, including the reduction of state and local taxes for high-tax states, which could be a major holdup in the process. Former House Speaker Kevin McCarthy has criticized Democrats for calling for President Donald Trump's impeachment following a series of airstrikes in Iran over the weekend. McCarthy argued that rather than focus on another impeachment attempt, Democrats should be in favor of removing global threats. He stated that Democrats are on the wrong side of history and that they should work together to make America stronger and the world a better, safer place. The United States launched airstrikes targeting Iran's nuclear infrastructure and key military facilities, following months of failed negotiations with Tehran over its uranium enrichment program. Former Democratic Congressman Anthony Weiner, who pleaded guilty to sexting a teenage girl and served 21 months in prison, is running for one of Manhattan's city council seats. Weiner emphasizes accountability for his past wrongdoings and presents a moderate platform, including increasing police presence and taxing the rich. He faces competition from other candidates in Tuesday's Democratic primary. Atlanta police said 3 men and a juvenile could face hate crimes charges for destroying LGBTQ pride flags at an intersection in the city's Midtown neighborhood. The suspects, who drove from northwest of Atlanta, were arrested after pulling down flags and cutting them up with a knife. They also fled on motorized scooters before being caught by officers. The incident occurred during Pride Month, which is marked in many places, although Atlanta's main festival is held in October. A Justice Department whistleblower has come forward alleging that a top official suggested ignoring court orders on deportations under the Alien Enemies Act. The whistleblower, Erez Ravini, claims he was told by Principal Associate Deputy Attorney General Emil Bove to consider defying court orders in March 2025. This allegedly occurred before the administration carried out deportations under the act, which led to a judge issuing an order halting the removals. Ravini's allegations also include instances where the DOJ ignored court orders and made misrepresentations in court. He was fired from his position in April after acknowledging that one deportee had been sent to a prison in El Salvador, despite a court order barring him from being sent there. President Donald Trump posted a private text message from NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte, praising his decisive action in Iran and saying he's driven the alliance to a really important moment for America and Europe. The message was sent ahead of a 2-day NATO summit in the Netherlands. The White House confirmed the authenticity of the message, but declined to provide further details on how it was transmitted. New York City mayoral candidates Andrew Cuomo and Zohran Mamdani are framing themselves as the best choice to stand up to President Trump in the final days of campaigning. Cuomo, the frontrunner, has declared war on Democratic states and cities, while Mamdani is focusing on taking on authoritarianism from the outside and an affordability crisis from the inside. Voters are looking at both national and local issues, particularly affordability, as they decide who to cast votes for in Tuesday's ranked choice Democratic primary. Pittsburgh Steelers quarterback Aaron Rodgers, 41, said he is pretty sure that he will retire following this season. Rodgers signed a 1-year contract with the Steelers at the beginning of June and plans to empty the tank for his final season. He has played 20 years in the NFL and expressed his love for the game as the reason for returning this season. The 4-time NFL MVP said he spoke to Steelers head coach Mike Tomlin every week throughout his free agency, calling their conversations really meaningful. Rodgers plans to vanish from the public eye after retirement, stating that when it's all done, it's Kaiser Soze, you won't see me. An 11-year-old boy was shot and killed near Folwell Park in Minneapolis on June 23, 2025. Witnesses reported seeing multiple cars driving through the area when gunfire erupted at around 2 p.m. A Good Samaritan found the boy outside, suffering from a gunshot wound, and rushed him to the hospital, but he was pronounced dead at the scene. Police are urging anyone with information to come forward, saying they need the public's help to solve this case. The United States is reviewing the damage caused by recent airstrikes on Iran's nuclear sites. New satellite images show the extent of the destruction, with bunker-buster bombs leaving significant damage behind. The operation was carried out by B-2 stealth bombers in June 2025. The review aims to assess the effectiveness of the strikes and determine the next course of action. A new survey by PwC found that nearly 3/4 of back-to-school shoppers expect to spend the same amount or more this year than they did in 2024, despite growing economic uncertainty. The results indicate a value-oriented consumer who is prioritizing necessities like books and school supplies over discretionary items like clothing and technology. Artificial intelligence is also playing a role in how parents shop for back-to-school essentials, with 1 in 5 shoppers planning to use AI tools to find online deals. Neera Tanden, former White House Domestic Policy Council Director, appeared before the House Oversight Committee investigating President Joe Biden's mental acuity. The committee is also probing the use of an auto pen for pardons and other executive actions. Tanden denied any effort to disguise Biden's condition, stating, "Absolutely not." Additional former Biden senior aides are expected to be questioned in coming weeks. Chicago Teachers Union, CTU, President Stacey Davis Gates said that children belong to them while delivering a speech at the City Club of Chicago. The union's $50 billion demands came amid Chicago's enrollment crisis, with some schools operating at less than 1/3 capacity and high costs per student. CTU previously made headlines for criticizing school choice policies and conservatives, with Davis Gates stating that conservatives do not want black children to read. A local tubing company, Float the River, has faced public backlash after accusations of being involved in a June 21 river incident that resulted in the death of 5-year-old Braxton Cross and his 27-year-old father. The company clarified on Facebook that they did not rent out the inflatable tubes used by the family and had actually closed operations due to high water conditions before the tragedy occurred. Cuyahoga Falls Fire Department has resumed its search for the missing father, deploying multiple resources along the river. The U.S. Navy is using its munitions at an alarming rate to defend Israel from recent Iranian strikes, a military official said Tuesday. Admiral James Kilby, Naval Operations Acting Chief, testified before the Senate Appropriations Committee that the Navy is going through its munitions quickly due to the high demand for defense against global threats. The Navy is currently using Standard Missile 3s, SM-3, to intercept and destroy short and medium-range ballistic missiles. However, lawmakers are concerned about the Navy's ability to replace and maintain stockpiles amid global threats. U.S. President Donald Trump has warned Israel not to violate the nascent ceasefire with Iran by launching new military strikes. The warning comes after a recent announcement of a ceasefire between the two countries. Israeli officials have accused Iran of violating the agreement, while the Iranian army has denied any wrongdoing. The situation remains tense as both sides continue to exchange attacks. Despite U.S. and Israeli strikes targeting Iran's nuclear program, hundreds of pounds of enriched uranium remain unaccounted for, leaving experts uncertain about the impact on Tehran's ability to build a nuclear weapon. The International Atomic Energy Agency, IAEA, has not been able to verify the stockpile since June 10, and it is unclear whether the enriched uranium was moved before the strikes. Experts warn that Iran could still have a pretty good foundation from which to rebuild a covert program. Elon Musk's lawyers claim he doesn't use a computer to push back against OpenAI's accusation that Musk failed to comply with the discovery process in his lawsuit against the company. However, public evidence suggests otherwise, including Musk's own posts on X stating he uses an ancient PC laptop and has bought new ones. Actor Diego Luna guest-hosted Jimmy Kimmel Live on Monday, where he criticized President Donald Trump's immigration policies as authoritarian and very unfair. Luna argued that immigrants are the backbone of the U.S., contributing to cultural exchange and building the country. He questioned how Trump acquired power and allowed hate speech to take root in America. The actor emphasized that separating families is unacceptable and that immigrants need to know their struggle is shared by others. 7 American stealth bombers flew roughly 37 hours to bomb Iran's nuclear sites over the weekend, setting a new record for the longest B-2 flight. The mission required a large portion of the U.S. B-2 fleet to work at once, with pilots flying in conditions that included only a few hours of sleep and stressful aerial refuelings. Albuquerque police has released body cam footage from the scene of a car accident that former UFC champion John Jones is accused of fleeing from in late February. The video appears to show Jones, who announced his retirement from MMA this past Saturday, making threats and referencing surveillance techniques while on the phone with police. He allegedly tells officers that they slit throats and implies he can have people killed for him. Jones is currently facing a criminal summons on a misdemeanor charge of leaving the scene of an accident. Former Minnesota House Speaker Melissa Hortman and her husband Mark will lie in state in the state capitol rotunda on Friday, a day ahead of their funeral. The couple was fatally shot in their home on June 14th, with authorities saying it was a politically motivated killing. Vance Bolter, 57, faces state and federal murder charges for the shootings. A majority of Americans interviewed by Fox News Digital expressed support for President Donald Trump's strikes on 3 Iranian nuclear facilities, citing concerns about national security and the threat posed by a potential nuclear-armed Iran. While some critics argued that the move was premature or could lead to further conflict, many respondents felt that the action was necessary to protect American interests and prevent a catastrophic outcome. The U.S. military's precision strikes on Fordo, Natanz, and Isfahan were widely seen as a bold and decisive move by Trump, who has been criticized for his handling of foreign policy issues in the past. A 1970 Chevrolet Chevelle SS396, a mechanical phoenix, has been resurrected from 3 decades of basement shadows in Cincinnati, Ohio. The car's original heart, a 402 V8 engine, is still intact and awaits restoration. Expert Patrick Glenn Nichols documented the journey from shadow to light, and with meticulous work, the Chevelle will be reborn as a cruising crown jewel, potentially valuing over $100,000. President Donald Trump refused to commit to Article 5 of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, NATO, during a press conference on his way to the NATO summit in The Hague. He claimed there are multiple definitions of the agreement and said he would provide an exact definition when he arrives at the summit. Meanwhile, Trump spoke with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu on Tuesday morning, following his post on Truth Social, where he wrote, "Israel, do not drop those bombs." A White House source said Trump was firm and direct with Netanyahu about sustaining the ceasefire. Randy Mahomes, the mother of Kansas City Chiefs quarterback Patrick Mahomes, expressed her opposition to transgender athletes competing against biological females in girls' and women's sports during a recent podcast interview. She stated that she believes it is not fair for transgender athletes to compete against biological females due to physical strength differences. Mahomes suggested creating separate leagues for transgender athletes to ensure fairness. Her comments come amid controversy surrounding the issue in California high school sports. George St. Pierre, a UFC legend, expressed his desire to see Conor McGregor return to the octagon after nearly 4 years of absence. McGregor last fought in July 2021 and has been waiting for an opportunity to make a comeback. St. Pierre believes that McGregor's return would be beneficial for the sport, bringing more eyeballs and promotion. However, UFC President Dana White has expressed his opposition to hosting fights at stadiums, which could impact McGregor's potential return. A cargo truck, with the driver inside, was seen hanging over the edge of a collapsed road bridge in China on June 24, 2025. The incident occurred without warning, leaving authorities to investigate the cause of the collapse and ensure public safety. President Donald Trump urged Congress to pass the big beautiful bill as soon as possible on Tuesday, saying that no one should go on vacation until it's done. He also continued his criticism of Representative Thomas Massie, RKI, calling him a loser and claiming is not a supporter of the MAGA movement. The president's comments come after Massie voted against passing the One Big, Beautiful Bill Act in the House last month. U.S. Senator Bernie Sanders has expressed his opposition to a potential war with Iran, citing the devastating consequences of previous conflicts in Vietnam and Iraq. In an opinion piece published on Fox News, Sanders argued that the U.S. should not get involved in a war with Iran, as it would be another unnecessary and costly conflict. He also criticized Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu for pushing for a war with Iran, calling him a war criminal, who has been indicted by the International Criminal Court for starving and killing civilians in Gaza. Sanders emphasized that the U.S. should prioritize investing in improving life for American citizens rather than wasting money on illegal and unnecessary wars. WWE superstar Charlotte Flair has admitted to feeling pressure from her father Ric Flair's legacy every day, despite having won 14 women's world titles in the business. She stated that her father is still active and larger than life, making it a healthy competition for her. Charlotte also discussed how WWE has reached a new level since being broadcast on Netflix earlier this year, with different viewers and audiences opening up opportunities for WWE superstars. Amazon's new activewear collection features soft, breathable textures perfect for summer workouts. The line includes high-waist capri leggings, tank tennis dresses, and light support bandeau sports bras, all under $30. Amazon Prime members can enjoy fast, free delivery, and other benefits. The collection is designed to be stylish and comfortable for various activities, from yoga to running errands.